Delilah. Um, Honestly, the name just suddenly appeared on the screen one day in General Hospital, and people started asking questions right away. That kind of thing happens sometimes with soap operas. A new face appears, and at first you think maybe she will just stay for a few episodes, maybe a temporary storyline, but then something strange happens. The character disappears quickly, sometimes even dies, and yet the conversation about that character becomes bigger than expected. Delilah feels exactly like that kind of case. I mean, seriously, she arrived in town and almost immediately tragedy followed too fast. Almost suspiciously fast, if you ask me. And now everyone keeps talking about her, not because she stayed long, but because she left behind something much bigger than herself. A baby. And a mystery. And probably a trail of secrets that will take months, maybe even years to unfold if the writers decide to stretch it out. And they usually do stretch it out, let's be honest. Fans are curious about Delilah for several reasons, not just one. First obvious question, who exactly was she? Second question, who is the father of the baby? And then the third question that I keep thinking about, why did she come to Port Charles in the first place? Because people do not just randomly arrive in a soap opera town without a reason. There is always someone they are looking for, someone they are hiding from, or someone connected to their past. Delilah must fit into one of those categories. Right now, Harrison Chase and Brooklyn Quartermain are stuck in the middle of this situation. They did not ask for it. In one moment, their lives are moving along, complicated but manageable like usual. And the next moment, there is a newborn baby depending on them, and the mother of that baby is gone permanently. That kind of responsibility just drops on them out of nowhere. Honestly, that alone could be a whole storyline already. But here is the problem that Chase and Brooklyn are facing right now. They cannot just assume the baby belongs with them, even if Delilah might have wanted that. Maybe she did. Maybe she said something before dying. Maybe there was a hint. But legally and morally, they still need to contact Delilah's family. Someone out there must know her, must be connected to her, must have the right to know what happened. And that is where things get messy. Because at this moment, there are no clear clues about Delilah's relatives. None that we have seen yet anyway. No phone calls coming in. No dramatic relative running into the hospital, crying, nothing like that. Just silence. Which actually makes the whole thing feel even stranger. Chase and Brooklyn probably need to start from the very beginning. Not the baby, not the tragedy, but the reason Delilah came to Port Charles at all. Because if they can figure that out, then maybe they can figure out who she was trying to find. And that person could be the key to the whole mystery. Think about it for a second. Someone travels to a town like Port Charles while pregnant, clearly dealing with some kind of struggle, possibly emotional, possibly financial, maybe even something dangerous. That person must have had a goal, a destination, someone she trusted enough to seek help from. People do not make that kind of journey without hope of finding someone. So the question becomes, who? I personally think Delilah had a connection to someone in town long before she ever arrived. Not a random connection either. Probably someone who has been around for years, maybe even decades in the history of General Hospital. The writers love doing that. Linking new characters to old ones. It creates drama. It creates shock. And it makes longtime viewers feel like the story world is connected. So yeah, I do not believe Delilah was just some stranger passing through. No way. There has to be a deeper tie somewhere. Which brings us to another step Chase and Brooklyn might have to take. Announcing Delilah's death publicly. It sounds cold when you say it like that, but realistically, it might be the only way to find her family. A public notice. Maybe something through the hospital. Maybe through the police. Maybe even something that spreads through the town gossip chain that Port Charles is famous for. If someone out there knows Delilah, they will eventually hear the news, and when they hear it, they might come forward. That is the hope anyway. Now here is where things start getting interesting. Recently, viewers saw the return of Ezra Boyle. His timing feels suspicious to me. Not necessarily suspicious in a villain way, but suspicious in a storytelling way. Soap operas rarely bring someone back without a reason. So what if Ezra is actually Delilah's father? I know that sounds dramatic, but this is a soap opera after all. Dramatic is basically the default setting. Imagine the scenario. Delilah comes to Port Charles searching for the father she has not seen in years. Maybe she had nowhere else to go. Maybe something went wrong in her life and she thought finding him would fix things or at least give her some support. But she never gets the chance. That is the tragedy part. That hits harder when you think about it like that. She came looking for family, and instead she died before they could even meet properly. And now the only piece of her left in the story is the baby she brought into the world. If Ezra really is her father, then his reaction could be explosive, grief, mixed with guilt, anger, confusion, all of that at once. Imagine learning that your daughter traveled all the way to find you, only for you to hear about her death from strangers. That kind of thing could break someone emotionally. But then there is the baby. Ezra would suddenly realize he has a grandchild, a living reminder of Delilah. And that opens another complicated situation. Does he try to take custody of the baby? Does he respect Delilah's possible wish for Chase and Brooklyn to raise the child? Or does he struggle with the decision, unsure what the right thing even is? Personally, I think the writers might go with the emotional conflict route, Ezra wanting to be part of the baby's life, but also recognizing that Chase and Brooklyn have already stepped into parental roles. Those kinds of shared custody dynamics can create long story arcs. But there is still the biggest question sitting in the middle of all this. Who is the father of the baby? And I keep coming back to one name. Nathan West. I know not everyone agrees with that theory. Some fans think it might be someone completely new, or even someone unexpected from another storyline. But Nathan keeps standing out to me for a few reasons. First, his recent return to town. Timing matters in soap writing. When a character comes back after being gone, the writers usually have something planned for them. They rarely bring someone back just to let them stand around in the background doing nothing. Second, the possibility that Nathan and Delilah had a past relationship that we simply have not seen yet. Maybe it happened off screen. Maybe it was meant to be revealed slowly through flashbacks or conversations. That is another classic soap technique. So imagine this scenario. Nathan and Delilah were together at some point. Maybe it was serious. Maybe it was complicated. Maybe Nathan left for reasons that made sense to him at the time, but ended up hurting Delilah deeply. Relationships end messy sometimes. That is realistic, even outside soap operas. Delilah becomes pregnant. And here is the twist that keeps circling in my head. What if Nathan never knew? What if Delilah discovered the pregnancy after Nathan had already left? Maybe she tried to find him. Maybe she wanted to tell him. Maybe circumstances kept getting in the way. And by the time she finally decided to travel to Port Charles, everything in her life was already falling apart. If that is the case, then Nathan might be walking around town right now, completely unaware that he has a child, unaware that the woman he once cared about died trying to reach someone in this very place. That kind of reveal would be devastating and dramatic, which again fits the soap formula perfectly. Now, imagine Ezra discovering this truth before Nathan does. Because if Ezra is Delilah's father, and if he learns that Nathan abandoned her while she was pregnant, the anger could be overwhelming. We are talking about a father grieving his daughter. Logic does not always exist in that emotional state. Ezra might blame Nathan entirely for Delilah's suffering. He might believe Nathan caused everything, the loneliness, the journey, the tragedy. Grief can turn into rage very quickly. So there could be a confrontation, maybe even a physical one. Ezra attacking Nathan, demanding answers, accusing him of destroying Delilah's life. And Nathan, confused, defensive, maybe even shocked when he hears the truth. Imagine that moment when he realizes what Ezra is saying is real, that he actually has a child somewhere in Port Charles. I can almost see the scene in my head already. Nathan standing there stunned, struggling to process the information, Chase and Brooklyn nearby holding the baby, Ezra furious and heartbroken, the whole situation messy and emotional, nobody fully prepared for what just came out. That is the kind of chaos that soap operas thrive on. And honestly, I think it would make sense for the story. Delilah may be gone, but her presence can still ripple through multiple characters. Ezra dealing with grief, Nathan facing unexpected fatherhood, Chase and Brooklyn questioning whether they should keep raising the child or step back. Sometimes the most powerful characters in soap stories are the ones who are not even alive anymore. Their secrets continue affecting everyone else. Delilah might end up being exactly that kind of character. Someone who appeared briefly, left behind a mystery, and slowly changes the lives of people in Port Charles long after her death. And if my guess about Nathan turns out to be right, well, things are going to get very complicated for him very quickly. Probably before he even has time to breathe. Because finding out you are a father in a soap opera is never simple, never quiet. There is always drama attached. Always consequences. And in this case, the consequences might reach a lot further than anyone expects.